Three doctors led us to the CCU conference room for the family meeting. Emerson Hospital didn't want me to know what happened in the operating room. Emerson Hospital had a secret, and they were determined to keep it just that, their secret. After Mama left for the operating room, I stood in the empty space thinking how beautiful Mama looked. Something felt different, but I wasn't sure what it was. A nurse interrupted and told me I could go to the cafeteria. Instead, I asked for directions to the waiting area. I sat in the waiting area while the gastroenterologist performed the endoscopy. There was one other person in the waiting area besides the receptionist. Two interventional radiologists approached me and told me that the gastroenterologist viewed Mama's stomach, esophagus, and the first part of Mama's small intestine, but could not locate the bleed's source. The interventional radiologist asked permission to do an IR procedure to look further into Mama's intestines to find and stop the bleeding. I consented. I continued sitting in the waiting area. The gastroenterologist rushed out of the operating room and looked around for me. I saw him straight away. My heart sank as we walked towards each other. I knew something was wrong. No one comes rushing out of the operating room with good news. The gastroenterologist was panicked, and this worried me. Based on his demeanor, whatever was happening in the operating room was serious, and I didn't feel Emerson Hospital had it under control. I immediately knew I made the wrong decision. I should have transferred Mama to Massachusetts General Hospital. The gastroenterologist told me Mama was in trouble and asked me what I wanted him to do. This seemed like a strange question. I sternly told him to stop talking to me and help Mama. I assumed Mama was bleeding profusely and probably bleeding out. While standing in the middle of the waiting area, I started encouraging Mama. Come on, Mama. You have to fight. You can do it. I told God he couldn't take Mama, not now, knowing full well it was out of my control. The other family member in the waiting area lowered his head. No one made eye contact with me. It was easy to read the room. The tension was apparent. I was baffled. This was determined to be the day where nothing made sense. Three things bothered me. Why would the gastroenterologist leave the operating room while Mama was bleeding out? If the gastroenterologist was trying to save Mama, why didn't he have any blood on his scrubs? Did he take the time to change scrubs before he talked to me? Why was the gastroenterologist panicked? The gastroenterologist's visit was alarming. I called my family and told everyone to get to the hospital immediately because the doctors couldn't stop the bleeding. Those were difficult conversations. My family members trickled in and met me in the waiting area. We stayed at the hospital and waited and waited and waited. But we weren't allowed to see Mama until early in the morning the following day. We were led into the CCU by three doctors. There's a single automatic door at the entrance of the CCU, which requires badge credentials or a buzzer push to gain access from the outside. The CCU has two parallel hallways that run the length of the CCU. There are rooms of sliding glass doors on both sides of the hallways. There's a large workstation area for doctors and nurses in the middle of the CCU, and there's a large conference room at the very end of the CCU, opposite the entry and exit doors. We followed three doctors down the long hallway to the CCU conference room. The doctors were in one group about 10 steps ahead of us. We were following behind in a somber mood. We casually looked around as we walked down the CCU hallway, passing patients' rooms. I casually looked to my right and saw Mama in room 404 on life support. I was devastated. I didn't know Mama was on life support. It was thoughtless for Emerson Hospital not to disclose this before I saw Mama. I watched the three doctors leading us to the CCU conference room as they continued past Mama's room, like they were on a routine stroll in the park on a Sunday afternoon. We immediately stopped and visited with Mama. The three doctors continued to the CCU conference room. Our mood became even more somber. The weight of seeing Mama on life support enveloped my soul. After visiting with Mama, we walked to the conference room. Now more than ever, we wanted answers. Two doctors were standing in the doorway, and the gastroenterologist was sitting at the head of one of the tables facing the conference room door. I sat at the same table on the left, about 2 seats back. This enabled me to scan the room and observe the doctors in the doorway and the seated gastroenterologist. The pressing question that needed answering was how Mama went from being alert, awake, laughing, and talking incessantly as she was being taken to the operating room to being on life support. What happened in the operating room? I waited for answers, but the answers never came. The doctors had the same mannerisms, a lack of eye contact, nervousness, and a lack of specificity. No one answered the question, what happened to Mama? Mama was on life support, so this alone should have prompted a thorough conversation. Something wasn't right. If Mama lost too much blood in the operating room, why not just say that? Mama clearly articulated her wishes regarding not accepting blood before the operation, and Mama's wishes were on file at 2 hospitals. What was I missing? I thought perhaps while attempting to stop the bleeding, Emerson Hospital made a mistake and exasperated the bleeding, and none of the doctors wanted to admit that. The healthcare proxy was in effect. It was my responsibility to speak for Mama and ensure that Mama's wishes were respected and executed, even when contrary to mine. I did what Mama wanted me to do. I said if Mama was injured while attempting to save her life, I could accept this, but I needed full transparency on what happened in the operating room. I extended grace and thought this would start a meaningful dialogue, but I was met with a white wall of silence. This was the first opportunity Emerson Hospital had to tell the truth. Emerson Hospital would squander many more opportunities. The doctors tried to pivot us to the narrative that Mama was resting comfortably and that she would wake up. They recommended that we go home and come back later that morning to regroup. The 3 doctors left. We left the CCU conference room shortly after and stopped to visit with Mama. Something wasn't right, but I still gave Emerson Hospital the benefit of the doubt. I thought maybe Emerson Hospital wanted to say something, but not in front of the entire family. After visiting with Mama, we walked down the CCU hallway to exit. I was the last one in the group. I slowed my pace, causing the distance between me and my family to increase. I reached the door and deliberately stepped over the threshold. First my left foot, then my right foot. I listened for someone to call my name and pull me aside so we could talk. There was silence. This was the second opportunity Emerson Hospital squandered. I told my family to go ahead without me and that I wanted to sit with Mama for a while. That wasn't entirely true. Emerson Hospital didn't want me to know what happened in the operating room. Emerson Hospital had a secret, but that's my Mama. I wasn't leaving until I knew the secret. I turned around and re-entered the CCU for a showdown. The door closed behind me.